How we doing? Johnny Concert here. Welcome to the Johnny Concert Podcast. I'm Johnny Concert.
And I'm DJ Greggy G.
Greggy G, what's up? So we like to talk about music. So we got topic of the day. Topic of the day is bands that were ruined by the radio. And I'll start right off with the Eagles. I mean, the Eagles, they've just played a Hotel California over and over and over. Hell of a song. Fantastic song. Wins like top 10 songs of all time in the polls all the time. And people, just I don't even know if anybody could deny that's a great song. But I just got overwhelmed by it. And in the 70s and 80s and even 90s, they just wouldn't stop playing the dang Eagles. And so that's the one I'm starting off
So
with.
fun fact, too, about them. So Eagles, we were just talking about this beforehand. So they started as the backup band to Linda Ronstadt. Her manager found Glenn Frey, Don Henley. That's how those guys started. Laurel Canyon days. Great sounding band. Again, another kind of a swap on this topic that we were talking about a little bit before we started here was they have a band that had great music, and they almost got ruined by the stuff that got overplayed on the radio.
That's right.
There's a lot of other artists, a lot of other bands like that.
But they were just so good at doing playing the right amount of notes, playing certain notes in a certain combination that is just pleasing to anyone's ears.
Yeah.
And they were really good at that.
Great.
And there's guitar solos I think of. There's were simple and
great
less
musicians.
notes, but they just fit the song, and they were just. I mean, they got really well written songs.
Agreed.
And so, it's, but
so who else?
Radio kind of ruined them. Well, for me, Elton John. I mean, God dang, they play Elton John every 5 seconds for decades. If I hear Benny and the Jets one more time, I'm going to lose my mind.
Again, another one that just so much great music, but the stuff that you always hear on the radio.
I mean,
again, some of it's good.
Hits.
I mean, most of it's good, but it's just like you get tired of hearing it over and over again. You go to the grocery store and you hear it.
That's right.
Every place you go, some of those songs you hear.
Now you hear those on the oldies station. so older reference, lost on younger viewers. Right? Yes.
All right, so I get.
Tell me some more.
Yeah, maybe a little more. We can swap back to the classics too, but maybe a couple contemporary ones. A band that I kind of grew up with that I really liked, Kings of Leon. First couple albums, really raw, kind of southern garage rock and roll band, and they were great and they were fun in concert.
Three brothers, right?
Three brothers and a cousin. They're all related.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And so anyway, they made great music. Great band to see live. Always fun to see live. Obviously, they got their big blow up with Sex on Fire.
Yeah.
Something.
That's pretty good, though. You got to admit. Even though I like my music a little heavier, we know this, but
again, happy for them that they became big and became popular. I'm sure they never have to work another day in their lives.
I wonder if bands want that. Like if you're
it's kind of
if you're a garage band and you want to fight the power.
Actually,
all of a sudden you're on the radio and you didn't really want. I mean, everybody wants to be famous and have people appreciate their music, but I wonder if there's any bands that are like, dang, we didn't want to be on the radio.
Well, another good kind of piece of their story too is that when they started out, when they were young, they were not popular in the U.S. People here didn't really appreciate it. Whatever, they're from Oklahoma.
Okay.
Like their father was a preacher. They traveled all around when they were kids. Tennessee, Oklahoma, that whole area. But they actually, when they were younger, they blew up in England, and they're huge in England. Like, still to this day, they're a huge band in England.
They're huge in Amarillo.
Right,
I know I'm huge somewhere. I just can't find out where that is.
But then they didn't become popular in the U.S. until Sex on Fire.
Why are they called Kings of Leon?
That was their grandfather's name, I think. Was
okay,
I believe, something like that. Grandfather. So one of their ancestors. But yeah, fun band. But yeah, again, blew out of the stratosphere when that album came out, when that song came out, and personal opinion, I don't know if they've really made a lot of great music since that record. That record in and of itself is a great record. The rest of it is amazing. Those songs are very good songs. But yeah,
You know, I really never put the time in to listen to them, but
Yeah.
I've been Johnny concert. I have seen them in concert from the front row, and it was a really good concert.
Yeah.
And I went in just like, you know, certain venues that I get in anyway. I don't, you know, I go to any concert that's there because I know people and so I was there, not necessarily like, oh, I gotta go see the Kings of Leon. You know, it's just like, you know, my buddies have tickets, and so I went, and I was, you know, happy about it, but not, you know, blown away. And then and all of a sudden when they started playing, I'm like, you know what, these guys are pretty freaking good.
Yeah.
So I was impressed. I'll give them a good high grade for sure. So yeah,
Another band. I don't know if I'd throw them in this category, obviously, but I know that they didn't want to be put into this category. Controversial band for some people, Radiohead. I like them, appreciate them. I know a lot of people can't stand them. All that aside, they they kind of started a little bit with a radio hit. The Creep was obviously kind of got them popular.
They're eclectic, that's for sure.
Sure, yeah. And then they had a song off of the Bends, High and Dry, which is also a great song, but it was kind of a record label song, and the record label made them put it out on the radio. It became very popular on the radio, and now I know for a fact they will never play that song again. They never play it live. They never do it. They never wanted to go down that road. So whether you like them or not, I guess appreciate the fact that they didn't want to go down that path.
They don't seem that approachable, which I think there's kind of something they're going for, actually.
I
never,
totally agree.
You know, the things I've heard from them, I never made me want to go buy an album and really sink my teeth into them.
Sure, yeah.
So, but I remember one time, you know, when you talk about Warren Haynes all the time on guitar, Allman Brothers, Government Mule, Play for the Dead. And he's just one of the most amazing. It's like he just channels music. Like music's like a river flowing through him, and it's almost like he can't shut it off. He'll play for. I mean, he used to be the Government Mule would open up for the Allman Brothers, would open up for the Dead, and he'd play in all three bands. He'd play for 6 hours a night or plus. And you have to drag him off stage. So, but I always say you don't want him to cover one of your songs because he'll do it better than you did, and you'll be basically crying. You say, "Why didn't I think of that note, that extra note?" He plays, and I've seen him do that about maybe 50 times. He played Creep one night. He played Radiohead's Creep one night, and it had this weird intro that everyone's like, "Wait, what's he gonna play?" You know, I can't figure out what he's playing. And he came out with Creep, and he did it justice for sure.
Nice.
But I've seen him do just total tangent here, but I hate the song "Wild Horses" by the Rolling Stones. I hate that fucking song. But I saw Warren Haynes play that song one night, and I had tears streaming down my face. It's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. And he just does that for things. But anyway, total tangent. But I just thought of it because he played Creep one night.
Well, again,
that's a whole other show. It's just Warren Haynes. It's a whole other podcast.
Warren Haynes. The other one that I know that you want to talk about at some point, we'll do it a later time, but. Covers in general.
Oh yeah, covers versus originals.
And covers versus originals.
Right.
Sometimes there are some covers out there that are better than the originals, but different topic.
That's
different
a different
day,
topic, different day. But back to the matter at hand.
Right.
Who else?
Well, you had mentioned Steve Miller.
Steve Miller for sure.
Yeah.
And now Steve Miller, there's tons of Steve Miller. You can go super in depth on him. He's one of the first guys that actually knew what he was doing when he went in to negotiate his record contract. And so many bands have been used and abused so bad. Like I think of Black Sabbath, and they signed away their first 4. They said we're going to do 4 albums, and then they signed these contracts. They had no idea what they were doing, and then they were all living in mansions and driving Rolls Royces. And it turns out they didn't own the mansions and they didn't own the Rolls Royces. So when they said, "Oh, we're not doing that 4th contract," they're like, "Fine, you got 30 days to get out of your house." "What do you mean? This is my castle." "No, it's not. You didn't read the fine print. You don't even own that. You never have owned even $1 of that mansion. We're just letting you live in it till you pay back your advance." And so, but Steve Miller actually understood royalties, and he went in and negotiated his deal, and he changed the way musicians, negotiate from then on, because he's like the first guy that really knew what the hell he was doing.
Well, admittedly, like I will fully admit that I didn't know Steve Miller until the radio stuff and high school, and all the songs that all the kids these days still know those.
Oh,
songs.
those crazy kids.
Right. But what I learned and found out later is that Steve Miller is an excellent blues guitarist.
Excellent.
Nobody, well, at least People younger than me certainly had no fucking idea.
You don't picture Steve Miller as a guitar god. You picture him as having hit songs, Fly Like an Eagle.
Right.
And but Take the Money and Run, all those things. But I saw him, seen him many times in concert, of course, and I saw him at Red Rocks once with Eric Johnson opening up. And Eric Johnson is one of the best guitar players of all time. He's fantastic. And so he opened up, did a great set. Steve Miller came on. Then at the end, Eric Johnson came back out with Steve Miller, and they played a little jam session. And so Eric Johnson, of course, is shredding away. So Steve Miller, they're going back and forth, doing the call and response kind of thing with the guitars. And all of a sudden, Steve Miller takes it up to the stratospheric levels. I'm like, wow, I didn't know he could do that. I was blown away, to be honest with you. So, but he's, in terms of writing a song, he's fantastic. I mean, people know the words to his songs even if you don't want to. You can't. It's not up to you. He's got implanted them in your head because he just knows how to work a melody. He knows how to write catchy lyrics that just they're made for the radio, but they're also cool enough that they rise above the radio. But at the same time, think about before we had CD players in every car, had tape decks, and I mean the 70s and 80s. We listened to radio all the time. The radio was what it was. Yeah. And so, you'd hear Fly Like an Eagle every 5 seconds. And I remember when it first came out, though. I was probably 8 years old, 9 years old, or something like that. And my neighbors, my neighbor buddy next door, had 2 older brothers. And those guys were showing us music, and we were like, that is a great freaking song. It was funny.
Funny even for that time, too, because you're totally right that, obviously from 50s forward, but especially once you get to late 60s, 70s, even into the early 80s, that's all. Bands became popular because of being on the radio. So there was there's record labels, managers, everybody, they want to get these bands out there. They want to get the bands on the radio. That's how people find out about these bands.
It's a whole other topic too. Is the bands that they paid the DJ to play.
Right. Yeah,
and so these bands got their music was famous because they played it so many times that people just started listening to it. It was catchy.
Yeah.
And then years later you realize that song sucked. But they had paid the DJ. They get the DJ $1,000 and play this every hour, and they did.
Well, and even the bands that even ended up becoming successful out of that period who were resistant to it are kind of impressive too. I mean, just bands that just were like, no, we're not playing to the radio. We're not putting songs out. Well, if you want to put our...
That's another one of my postulates of rock and roll is the best music of all time was made to make the song with no ulterior motives. It was just to make an incredible, beautiful song. Right. I don't care if the radio plays it. I don't care if it's too long. I don't care if people like it. I don't care anything else. Making a beautiful piece of art. And it turns out to be the best songs of all time. That's one of my postulates.
That whole concept... I mean, to me, I love the idea of the album, which it's been lost.
It's been lost,
and
it's kind of coming back though.
It is coming back, but it's coming back. The format has come back.
There's right. If whether they're writing the music for the album,
right. I don't know if it's right.
Some of them are though. The old guys, the old guys will.
Sure, yeah. And it's funny too though, hanging out with people. Even 40s, 30s, that whole idea.
Youngsters, I call them
youngsters. But even it's funny. I love putting records on. I love playing records.
Well, you're interactive. You're putting the thing on. You're not pushing a button and saying go. You have to pull it out of the sleeve, break it out, hold it by the sides, put it on, take the lead, put it on. You're part of the deal, All
right, now I'm gonna go off on the old man tangent, but I hate when you're hanging out with the kids. Are like,
kids.
Oh, that's cool. All right, so now play this song, and I'm like, all right, I can do that. I know how to find the song that you're looking for, but that's not the idea here. We're listening to a record, Well,
I remember we were religious about it growing up. I mean, you could once you put it on an album side, you could not switch it to the whole side. At least the side, if not the whole album, was played. You could not just put one song on. No, we didn't allow that.
I get mad when people play the sides out of order.
Oh well, check this out.
That makes me mad.
Growing up, so we had albums, but you couldn't have an album in your car, so everybody would make a mixtape, right? So we had the TDK.
Unless you're Keith Richards, he had a record player.
We got to bring that back with shock absorbers, dude. So it doesn't. So, but but then you get a driving under the influence of putting on a record because you had to use both hands because you put your fingerprints on it, So then you had no hands on the wheel, so you get pulled over.
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it was a Rolls Royce he had. That
so I believe it. So he's in the back. Then that's okay. That's all right.
Yeah.
But you got we made mixtapes for each other because we buy different albums.
Yeah.
Which okay, we go to the record store even and say you buy that album, I'll buy that, and we'll tape it for each other. So I prefer the SA90s, TDK SA90s versus the Maxells. Some people like the Maxells, which I think I like it almost too. Like the Maxells are more of a tube amp, and the SA90s are more of a solid state amp, crisp and clean, and you hear every cymbal you hear, and crisp and clean and bright versus kind of warm and a little more subtle. I don't know how to describe the other one. The tube amps are more warm versus more crisp.
And you don't know the struggle unless you were a kid and you were trying to record the song that you wanted to hear off the radio.
Oh, that's true too.
You get the tape all queued up, ready to go to record. And then the DJ would talk over the end of the beginning of the song.
They cut it out right before the last notes of the guitar solo, and the DJ goes in and starts talking about the song, announcing who it was, and oh my god! Or even worse, the goddamn commercial comes on before the last few notes of the outro solo. But we used to. So what I was getting at is that if somebody sometimes you would put a second side on first because it worked better on the 90-minute tape. But then we got really upset about that. We're like, dude, you can't do that. You can't put side 2 first and side 1 second. You just simply can't do it. But the other part is that they would do it so the first song on the second side was something special because when you flip the album, and so I could tell you what the first song on the second side of a lot of albums is, but I can't tell you what track 6 is of a CD because it blends into each other. It's not as interactive, and you don't focus as much because if the CD is playing for 50 minutes straight, you don't have the break where you have to flip it and think about it for a second, and then so it's a whole. It's a whole other thing. The albums are just a whole other thing.
Yeah, well, and what CD was? I think it's like 74 minutes when they did that. An album is kind of in that 50.
Well, it used to be 90-minute tapes because most albums were less than 45 minutes. So each side of the tape would be 45 minutes would fit an album.
Right.
And then it started being like, oh God, one confession to make, dude. I'm wearing my Metallica shirt, and I actually got this shirt at the concert in 1986 when Metallica opened up for Ozzy Osbourne. It was Metallica's Master of Puppets tour, and it was Ozzy Osbourne's Ultimate Sin tour at McNichols Arena. And phenomenal concert, and Metallica was just on fire. Cliff Burton was still alive and playing with the band, and but I remember when the And Justice for All album came out. And Justice for All, and my buddy taped it for me, but it was 52 minutes, so he left the song Orion off. Is Orion on Justice for All? That's not on Justice for All. It's on, I can't remember now.
Well, regardless, you got a song cut out.
So the song got cut out, but I listened to it 1,000 times, and I didn't know that the song Orion existed. Then one day I heard the song Orion, I'm like, what the fuck is this, dude? And they're like, this is Orion, dude. You know Orion? I'm like, how the fuck do I not know this song? It's an incredible song. And it's like unbelievable, man. And I do every single thing you're ever to know about Metallica. And then somebody played a song I never heard or never even knew it existed. It was like, killed me. But I digress. Back to the topic.
Other bands. Another
Steve Miller is what we were talking about. Though.
Steve Miller is
one of those bands. But here's another part: is that when I went to college, you're in the dorms, and everybody's got their door open, and they're all cranking music because they're trying to figure out, try to draw like minds and stuff. Every single person had Steve Miller's greatest hits. Every single person. How we doing, Johnny Contra here? We're back. And where we leave off? We were dorm rooms. Steve Miller.
Yeah, we were talking about making mixtapes and that stuff, but then back to
Steve Miller. And then Boston was another one.
Right,
Boston was a phenomenal band. Their music, their production value is so crisp and clean and clear, and Brad Delp's voice is amazing. He could hit such high notes; it's ridiculous. And so that was just a great band. But overplayed.
Overplayed, yeah. But I guess I'll make the argument. I think I feel like that music was somewhat created for a radio play to some degree. It's great music, great rock music, but it was a little bit more, it had that poppy feel.
I wonder if they wanted that to happen and then extend it a little bit. So they could say, we don't have to do 3 minutes. Like you hear the old, every song should be 3 minutes or people lose their attention spans. But I think Boston might have wanted to go a little towards radio friendly, but take it up a notch kind of thing. Maybe, I don't know.
I remember another one that I was going to talk about earlier, and you could do 3, 4, 2 days on this band because they're a unique band. But Genesis was a band.
Oh, good one.
Obviously, they went through many different phases.
Phases.
Different. You could say, arguably, completely different bands.
Completely different band. Well, Peter Gabriel, of course, was in it early.
Right. Yeah.
And,
early, but even before that, Bob Welch was in.
Bob Welch, unbelievable. Was it Greg Howe or somebody?
Right.
Who was a guitar player? They had an amazing guitar player early on, but then they, and then Phil Collins.
Right. So they kind of hit their popularity when they became a radio band with Phil Collins and those guys.
Yeah, Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. People didn't really know them, and then Abacab, they kind of started getting famous, and then after that, it was. I think of the dance. I can't dance. They got terrible. And Phil Collins, right? It's just the studio. I mean, you should be really ashamed of that one, man. I'm telling you.
Again, that you could do a whole.
So many iterations.
You could do a whole topic on.
Great name for a band.
Yeah. You could do a whole podcast on Phil Collins. It's just interesting guy.
But God, did he take it to terrible places? Didn't he?
I don't know. He is one of the highest selling artists of all time.
It's kind of hard to argue sometimes, but if certain number of people like what you're doing, there's got to be something to it. Even
absolutely.
If I don't, although I'll never forget, Guitar World one time had a 10 million people can be wrong award, and they gave it to Hootie and the Blowfish. I only want to be with you.
That seems exciting. Again,
they sold 10 million albums of that goddamn thing. So bad.
You can be popular.
I'd rather be. Come on, any true artist would rather be good than popular. I gotta think. I gotta hope. I gotta hope.
Again, that's probably a completely different.
That's a whole
topic,
other. That's like 500 podcasts we just brought up. 5 other subjects we brought up. I think of Toto. One time I heard Toto put out an album.
Those guys are great musicians.
They're fantastic musicians. But I heard they put out an album just to make some money, so then they could do whatever they wanted after that.
Well,
so they did. Steve Lukather, one of the most amazing production studio musician guys. I mean, he's just people die to work with him in the studio.
Wasn't Toto pretty much the band on the Thriller album? One of
Michael Jackson's Thriller?
One of Michael Jackson's album.
Really?
I believe that. Again, I could be totally off base there, but
I have to look that one up. But back to the radio be ruined is of course there's bands that supersede it, like Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
And you were talking about Pink Floyd.
Right.
How Until Money, I mean their first 4 or 5 albums.
Yeah, I mean they don't.
Obscure.
I can't even. I think calling Money a single is a weird.
No, I wouldn't say it's a single. It was just one of their first.
Well, especially when you take it off an album that is one complete work.
Absolutely.
It is that's a start to finish listen.
It sure is.
It has a whole flow and cadence, and
it
has a beginning, a middle, and an end. But
there's no doubt about it.
Bands like that, they completely resisted radio play, and they said it doesn't matter. We're going to sell records anyway because we're going to make the music that we love.
I think the beginning they didn't care about selling records. Right. They were just we're artists. We want to make whatever we want. If you like it, fine. If not, we don't care. I'm pretty sure that's how. That's my theory. Is the best music ever made was made in those conditions.
Right.
We're making a piece of art. We don't give a shit if you like it or not. We're not conforming. We're not trying to make money on it. We're not trying to have ulterior motives. We're not trying to keep it a certain length because it's radio friendly. We're not trying to do any of that crap. We're doing whatever coming out of our heads, and then if you guys like it, great.
Yeah.
But I think in the first 2 Pink Floyd albums, Astronomy Domine and Domine and Sasha Full of Secrets is the second album, 1968. And then, Piper to Gates of Dawn is what I'm talking. What I meant to say. Piper Gates of Dawn is their first album, 67. Sasha Full of Secrets is second album, 68. That's when Gilmour joined the band on the second album.
Right.
He wasn't on the first album.
After Sid, he came after Sid Barrett.
After Sid Barrett, I think they had. I don't know if I can't remember if they played together, but he was a replacement for Sid Barrett. Because Sid Barrett went too much LSD.
Well,
lost his damn mind.
Actually, again, I'll give a college buddy some credit, and he was the one that gave me all the dead bootleg tapes. But he introduced me to what is still probably my favorite Floyd song, which is "Fearless."
Oh man,
Is
so
like
good.
one of my favorite songs, and that song is about Syd Barrett. Fearlessly the idiot faced the crowd, so that that's kind of their.
Oh yeah,
It was
tons
kind
of
of their
music about
tribute
Syd Barrett.
song.
Wish
Yeah,
You Were Here.
Yeah,
I mean, all
absolutely,
that. Shine On You Crazy Diamond. That's
Yeah.
all.
Yeah,
Syd
absolutely,
Barrett, yeah.
But yeah, great band, fun band.
Oh, by the way, which one's Pink?
Yeah.
But but you're right. They didn't make their music to be on the radio.
Yeah,
It just,
they had no intention.
just people figured out it was that good.
Right, exactly.
And it's by far the best concerts I've ever been to, but without a doubt.
You brought up Santana earlier too. Like,
Santana.
we're like, again, obviously incredible musician, but
Incredible
I
musician.
feel like radio kind of made Santana.
A little bit, but he has
Popular,
and he, God, what's crazy is his first stuff was on the radio, but then he had definitely had some radio friendly hits on.
Yeah.
What was it? Some of his later albums, Inner Secrets, I think is one. No One to Depend On or something like that. And he's got a couple that were just a little like, okay, dude, you know, too radio friendly. But he's mostly universal and talented to where, but just, I mean, radio, it almost supersedes radio because it's just so good, but it's so, Black
that's
Magic
true.
Woman
Yeah.
and
Again, I don't get tired of hearing a
I
Santana
really
song
don't.
on the radio.
Black Magic Woman, I mean, it's just, Oh, You Come Ava, I mean, those are great freaking songs, man. And he's, Santana used to love to say, we're not going to have explosions and big pyrotechnic shows because we're about the music, we don't need to shine a light in your eye and pretend we're good. We're really good. And he was absolutely right about that, for sure. But somehow I got on the Metallica tangent earlier, and it's, of course my shirt from the 1986 concert at Big Nichols Arena, but just when they hit the Black Album, it's like that's when they got radio friendly, and
definitely.
in a bad way, I say. Metallica was never meant to be radio friendly,
Agreed. Yeah, it's weird that some bands were not meant to do that, and somehow some of them ended up in that place.
Well, I want to know how they feel about it right now. They still play songs off that album in the concerts, so they can't hate it too bad.
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, that Black Album was, compared to the rest of their albums, was just the first. I mean, the first in a series of, I didn't really care as much. I wasn't like waiting outside the record store to open up when their albums first came out, because they just radio, I don't know, just Enter Sandman just got overplayed.
Yeah,
overplayed for sure. But there's bands that supersede it, like Foreigner. I mean, I don't think I ever got sick of hearing Double Vision.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just a great freaking song, hard rock song, and just, I don't know.
Yeah, but again, there's some bands in that time period too, that '80s period where rock pop bands. Again, I feel like, for better or worse, those bands almost started tailoring themselves to be on.
Well, and I take it, Porter did go delve into the I want to know what love is. Every band, I mean, that's like the archetype of the band that, they get really famous and they get too high and then they do some stupid shit, like bring in an orchestra and 50 choir people, and it's like, wait, what are you doing, dude? I remember Matt Sorum, a drummer for Guns N' Roses, and they showed up for rehearsals. And who the fuck brought the piano, dude? Is Axl Rose Elton John now? I mean, come on, dude. And so a lot of bands fall into that trap, and 9 out of 10 times they regret it. They look back and say, sorry about that one, guys.
What about,
we lost our damn minds.
Here's a great band, but I do consider them a radio band. The Cars were phenomenal band.
They were. You're right.
But I don't know if they would have been.
They were.
Well, listen, they would have made the music they made, and it still would have been great music.
I think you're right.
I don't know if they would have became who they were if they weren't.
Well, you just think about
radio friendly.
There's more than radio friendly though. There's MTV friendly too. That's a whole other thing too.
Yeah.
Is that the Cars had a couple videos that took them up a notch, and then Paulina Porskova. We can't underestimate the effect she had on Cars. I mean, she was the hottest woman in the world for a bit there. Rico Kasich was married to her. So I don't know how. I mean, that just shows you the power of rock and roll.
One of the ugliest guys.
Get Paulina, man. Wow.
Yeah. Yep. No,
But the Cars being the first concert I ever saw, rock and roll concert I ever saw, 1983. Shake It
Very
Up tour
cool. Very
at
cool.
Big Nichols Arena, Big Mac we called it.
Excellent.
And great show. Of course, it's my first concert, so I was ecstatic and drunk. And
how old were you for your first concert then?
well, my first concert, I started going to the Symphony Orchestra, Denver Symphony Orchestra,
Yeah.
when I was a kid, and then maybe a couple
rock and roll.
The first real rock
yeah.
show where I was like, I was with my older cousins,
Yeah.
not the family, and it was like a real rock show, and I think I was in 8th grade
Nice.
in 1983, and so a fantastic concert, but the Cars also they had their new wave sound.
Yeah, that was a new sound.
But then
Back
they'd
then,
have
yeah.
L.A. Easton would play these heavy metal guitar solos in the middle of the thing, and super speedy, really technical guitar solos, even though they were only 20 seconds long. And then they'd go back into their shake it up, hoo, shake it up. It's pretty cheesy, but for some reason even those of us who like heavier music, we liked it.
They kind of did it a different way. It was
did.
yeah.
But then they had their moving stereo. They had their trippy side.
Yeah.
A great song. Moving stereo is
yeah.
a great freaking song.
So here, my first concert was Aerosmith, and they might fit the bill for this topic to some degree of as far as great band, great music. The radio kind of over.
But that band. So I've got my postulates of rock and roll. One of my postulates says if a band has long hair and they make great music, then they cut their hair. Their music goes to shit. I call that the Samson effect. When Delilah cut Samson's hair off. And my examples are Metallica, Red Hot Chili Peppers, and Soundgarden. Chris Cornell. Why Chris Cornell ever cut his hair is a mystery to me, because that's a crime against humanity. Cut hair is not cool. That hair was, it's like gifts of God. And so then Metallica too. They cut their hair. I was like, what are you guys doing, dude? And it was terrible. And so but then when the hair grows back, you can reclaim yourself. My second postulate of rock and roll states: if a band does tons of drugs and makes great music, then they quit doing drugs. Their music goes to shit. Aerosmith is the number one example of that. Love in an Elevator. Are you kidding me right now? What terrible insipid, trite lyrics, and cheeseball bullshit. All right, we're back. So we're talking about Steve Winwood now. And somebody asked me the other day, like, was Steve Winwood, was Traffic before or after Blind Faith? And I said, I'm glad you asked me, because the answer is both. He was in Traffic. Then it took us a minute to record Blind Faith album with Eric Clapton and Ginger Baker.
Ginger Baker was not.
And was it Jack Bruce too? Was it Cream plus Steve Winwood?
It wasn't all of Cream.
But it was a fantastic album. A one-off. Can't Find My Way Back Home.
That's a great fucking song.
Bell Bottom Blues is on that?
Bell Bottom Blues
is that Derek the Dominoes. But there's Presence of the Lord. In the Presence of the Lord. Oh my God, what a great song. But then he went back and did more Traffic after that. So
one of the most. That's actually. The Blind Faith album is like one of the most controversial album covers out there.
That's true. Very strange.
You can't get it anymore.
I'm not sure why they did that.
It is a very strange album cover.
Well, we need to overlay on a picture on that one. But so Steve Winwood got started in Spencer Davis Group, and I think he was 16 years old. And the song "Don't Want You No More," which is the first song the Allman Brothers on their first album played the Spencer Davis cover. "Don't Want You No More." And then what else? I'm a man, yes I am, and I can't help but love you so. So then he was played keyboards on Electric Ladyland, Jimi Hendrix's album. I think he was 16 or 17 years old then, and just phenomenal guy.
Classically trained pianist.
But he also last time I saw him in concert at Paramount, he played guitar and he played Hammond B3 organ. He'd go back and forth. And he played songs. He didn't say a word in between. Basically, he said one time he said, "Oh, let's get straight on with it," and then he kept going. And he never played a word. Never said a word. Never told stories or. Now he just got to work, and it was a joy to watch him work. He's just phenomenal musician. Just music incarnate is Steve Winwood. But you're right. He did get a little commercial there.
Just commercial and poppy in the 80s and stuff like that. Again, they're not bad songs, but it's just not.
Back in the High Life again. You're right.
It's just not. I don't know. To me, it's like you're better than that, man.
Well,
Like, yeah, I mean, yeah, I hate to say that, but like it's.
Yeah, it
know what I mean?
didn't
It's-
offend
yeah.
me.
No, yeah, right,
Some
right.
things offend me, like
no,
Phil
right.
Collins' bullshit. Sometimes it just offends me. It's just straight up. You need to apologize for that, dude. That is just a front to music.
Yeah.
It hurts me. But no, so definitely, I definitely don't dislike it, but I don't know if I love it. I don't have the Arc of a Diver album, but excuse me, but I see what you're saying. though. He
Yeah.
did.
There's some respect for some of those guys too that you could tell were headed down the path, or they knew that they were becoming popular, and then they kind of resisted and kind of shied away. Some of them, unfortunately, kind of almost became, as far as the music industry goes, recluses. I'm thinking like a David Byrne or something like that. Again, made great music, and then when he started becoming popular, he was like, "This isn't what I want to be. This isn't
Right.
what I want to do," and kind of moved away from
Well,
it.
that's a whole other thing too. Is how it sucks you in. I mean, you can't even imagine the power and the euphoria of,
Sure,
of everyone kissing your ass everywhere you go and worshiping you, ground you walk on,
Right.
and how it'd be so easy to lose your mind, you know.
Yeah.
And you got managers telling you how great you are. You got people pulling you,
Right.
advisors advising you maybe correctly or incorrectly, and you start partying and you're a little susceptible to certain things and so. But I don't see Steve Winwood like being convinced to do that against his will.
Oh,
I think
absolutely
it just
not.
kind of.
Yeah.
Just kind of came out. He was just feeling back in the high life, and so he played it. You know, I mean, he'd been playing for decades, and he had already written so much different music that you know. I mean, he has the right to do that. And like I said, I think it's still pretty good. I just wouldn't call it his best, but yeah, the radio did get a hold of Back in the High Life and played it to death for sure. They did.
Yeah, some of the what we were talking about Janice earlier, like some of those guys, like again, great musician, Mike Rutherford, but same thing, kind of like
pretty good musician. I don't know if he's great, but he's good.
Yeah, he's good. Yeah, good musician. Yeah.
He's not Peter Gabriel, but he's all right. But no, they just cheesed out so bad, you know. Not Sledgehammer. That's Peter Gabriel. I like that. But what's the cheese? Super cheesy. Not more than I Can't Dance video. There's even one that's even worse than that. Of the Genesis guys. When it was Tony Banks and Mike Rutherford and Phil Collins.
Well, there's that one that. What was that? The Land of Confusion, the one with the puppets, the video with like the puppets.
That's what I was thinking of. That's what I was thinking of. But then another just total segue, non sequitur is Disturbed, the band Disturbed, heavy metal band Disturbed.
Okay,
They do a cover of Land of Confusion. You can do a cover of any song you want in the history of music, dude. And you choose Land of Confusion by Genesis? Are you fucking kidding me right now, dude? What the fuck is wrong with you guys, dude? Come on, guys. I mean, and then they do Sound of Silence on the other one, which I hate. I just fucking, that's just not right. It doesn't work. Everybody loves it. But when you go to a Disturbed concert, the crowd eats it up with a spoon. But I'm like, dude, what? I don't want them to do this. I mean, why don't they do some Black Sabbath or some freaking, I mean, what the hell are you doing, dude? What, that's your roots? Genesis, Land of Confusion is not, it's not their roots, no way. It's not Dan Donegan's where you learn to play guitar by listening to Genesis. I don't believe that for 1 second. So,
I like now. Sorry, you brought up Sabbath and covers and stuff like that. Again, musician. If people haven't checked him out, Marcus King, young, fantastic blues rock guitar player.
Yeah,
great voice. Anyway, he very very talented. Great music. He's worked with some great producers too. But I've heard him a couple times. He'll do sometimes. He'll close out a show with a cover of War Pigs, and it's pretty impressive, and he is an absolutely killer guitar player. But yeah, I love. But it's guys like that when they're doing covers for the sake of doing a cover is I don't know. I don't always like that.
Well,
but
doing a cover about that.
Doing a cover to pay respects to the band and the artist that came out with the song is that's I like that stuff.
Well, I mean, Black Sabbath. Of course, the holy triumvirate of heavy metal is Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, and Iron Maiden. That's the holy triumvirate. You can't. I mean, that's just how it is.
Yeah.
But Black Sabbath invented heavy metal. Tony Iommi and Black Sabbath invented heavy metal.
Yep.
There's no way around that.
Yeah.
It was the song Black Sabbath on the Black Sabbath album by Black Sabbath is the first three notes, dun, dun, dun. That's heavy metal right there. that invented it.
That first
that
album.
tritone.
That first
and
album.
the fact that he cut his fingers off, so he had to detune his guitars a little bit. So he got that low drop tuning that had that low ominous sound, almost evil
Well, he was
guitar
working
sound.
He's working like a mill or something.
He was
like
working in
that.
the mill,
Yeah,
so Black Sabbath just announced their final concert of all time in Birmingham, where they're from. And Birmingham is a factory town when they're in the '60s.
Yep.
It's just pure. You grew up and you knew first you were just going to work at the factory at a certain age. That's what you did. And so Tony Iommi, last day they finally got a record contract. And last day at work, he cut off the tips of his 3 fingers on his fretting hand. He's left-handed, so on his fretting hand, and it hurt to play guitar. So he loosened the strings a little bit.
Tips on
And he invented these little almost like little condoms. He put
thimble,
on his,
almost like thimble.
almost like thimble with the condom that he put on his end of his because they hurt. They vibrate. But then he had lost his feelings. And Ozzy Osbourne used to say, "How the hell do you play with feeling when you have no feeling? You're trying to bend notes, but you can't feel it.
Yeah.
But you have the most feeling of any guitar player.
Yeah,
as much feeling as any guitar player ever has." And
he did kind of create that heavy metal guitar
I could talk about Black Sabbath all day, every day.
Great band.
Just
great,
one of the best bands of all time. Inventor of heavy metal, still got it. They're still playing a concert coming up. Their first album is 1970, February 13th, 1970, but the album was done in 69. But February 13th, Friday the 13th, was in February of 1970 was a Friday the 13th. The record company said, "Hey, let's release it on Friday the 13th to be spooky and ominous." And so they said, okay, so they held the album for several months before they released it on Friday, February the 13th, 1970. But it was done in 69. So then they're going to play a final concert 69, 79, 89, 99, 09, 19. 19 plus, that's 50. Plus, wow, that's 56 years.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. 55, 56 years. Wow.
Yeah, those guys are all still, I mean...
they're still going to play another show.
Well, they're also actually that's another, again, bands of that generation that are all still kind of intact.
Unbelievable,
there aren't
those guys.
a lot of them, right?
Well, the other thing is those guys don't know how to play a weak show. They'll say, "Oh, my stomach hurts. I'm not going to play that good tonight." They just those guys from the '70s and '60s, '70s, they were so into music. They just played. I mean, they think about they didn't have these cushiest tour buses. They didn't have Learjets. They weren't staying at the Four Seasons. They were sometimes in a Motel 6 in a van. Their back was killing them. They ate something that didn't agree with them. They were high as a kite. Their manager, they had no money. And everyone was telling them different things. And they would still put on the best show you've ever seen. They didn't know how to put on a bad show. And I know they all gave each other shit too. There'd be like lineups where it was Allman Brothers and Leonard Skinner and Molly Hatchet.
everybody's...
You put on a bad show. You're like, what the fuck was that, dude? Are you kidding me right now? It was a huge competitive thing too. You had to, when you got picked as an opening band for a legendary band, you better show up, man. Or they'd be like, what the fuck's wrong with you? We'll kick you out of this tour. We chose you for a reason. You guys are the shit, so let's see it. So it was a big thing. And to this day, when I see those bands, it would be a fantastic show. I mean, every single time. Sometimes better than it's ever been. I mean, even Leonard Skinner, 4 or 5 years ago, was just phenomenal.
Really?
And there are a couple of them alive still.
Yeah, right.
But, now they have tons of connections too. But I digress. I was going to call the podcast "But I Digress" because it's so easy to go down a tangent. But I think still the band, Leonard Skinner is another example. The band, but I don't think they ever got ruined by the radio because they're Leonard Skinner, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. I never stopped playing Leonard Skinner because of the radio.
Yeah.
Even though they definitely were overplayed on the radio, but that to me is one of the few bands that supersedes it, like Led Zeppelin.
You think Ozzy was overplayed on the radio after he left Sabbath?
I could never get enough of it.
Yeah.
I mean they might have tried to overplay him, but not to me. You can't overplay Ozzy. He's the Prince of Darkness. He's a god.
Yeah.
He was just he was just inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he'd already been inducted with Black Sabbath, and then they had he couldn't play. He didn't play. He's pretty fucked up, but he's old. I mean, he's old.
Yeah.
So it was. Billy Idol on vocals. It was Wolfgang Van Halen played the guitar on Crazy Train.
Nice.
And Zach Wilde was there. Steve Stevens, guitar player for Billy Idol.
Yep.
Who else? Chad Smith on drums.
Okay.
It was fantastic. It was real. I mean, I'm usually with Eddie Trunk on Rock and Roll Hall of Shame, but this time they got it right, and it was Peter Frampton, Foreigner, and Ozzy, and it was amazing.
Okay.
It was amazing. But when Ozzy played, it was really, really good.
Nice.
Really good. Although they did play Mama, I'm Coming Home, which I would not have chosen that one, but whatever. But it was phenomenal, and so I don't know what they're gonna pump him full of to get him to play that last show. But they're doing one last tour, but there's only one date, the Birmingham date.
Okay.
It's coming up, man. But I mean, I can't even imagine how the hotels in Birmingham right now they're charging $10,000 a night. I'll bet, because there's people that are making the pilgrimage.
But
I'm sure.
I mean, obviously they're kind of not. I mean, they're going to play another show together, but that's original members still.
With four original members. Four original members: Bill Ward, Geezer Butler, Tony Iommi, and Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah, and but of that, is there any other? Like, I can't even think of another band that started. They started in, like you said, they recorded their first album.
They were a band because they were called Earth before they were called Black Sabbath.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
so they played blues covers in band and bars.
But is there any band?
Well, ZZ Top was the same three guys since like 70.
Yeah.
I think 70, so that was a good record. But yeah, it's pretty hard to. And of course, Ozzy was let go and then brought back.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it's something about that Black Sabbath story though. It was like he could leave Black Sabbath for 20 years and come back still like he was never gone in a way.
Yeah.
As good as those Dio albums are, which are incredible albums.
Those albums are good. Yeah.
Dio, oh man. But we're way off the topic. But, that's what a podcast does. It goes where it goes. But yeah, I still.
We can wrap it up.
I mean, we can wrap it up.
We got plenty more topics for other days.
But we can revisit it too. But I want to always say, there's just for people keep in mind, there's still really only two kinds of music when it gets down to it. There's the music that I like and the music that sucks. There's only two kinds of music there are. So just keep that in mind, everybody. And it's just that's just how it is. I mean,
and buy tickets, go to concerts.
Go to concerts, man.
It's the best experience.
It's really almost everything in life is fake anymore, except for good sex and live music. Those about the only two things that are real anymore.
Yeah.
So that's
potentially next time, one topic I wanted to talk about was bands that you love based on their recorded work, and then you see them in concert and they're disappointing.
Or the opposite.
Or the opposite, where you're like, wow, I didn't really expect these guys to
Well, Allman Brothers are so, like, their studio albums are so mundane. I mean, not mundane, but they're just, there's 4 5-minute, 6-minute songs. So 20-minute songs in a concert. Right. It's just like, stretch them out. But that's a great topic. We'll visit that next time.
We'll revisit it. Yeah.
Now, don't forget to leave a comment with your favorite bands and your bands that you thought the radio ruined. And then, and of course, the bands, after a lot of those bands I stopped listening to, like the Eagles for a while. Now I listen to them back again, and it's fantastic. I'm over it.
Yeah.
But I was sick of them for a while. But subscribe to the channel, please, and leave your comments. We love comments. And this is Johnny Concert signing off.